Hello and welcome to Inspired Leadership. I'm Jamie Klein, the founder and CEO of Inspire HR. We're an organization that provides all things HR to organizations large and small, doing interim and fractional work in the areas of HRBP, total rewards, talent acquisition, and talent management, always with a focus on inclusion. And I'm thrilled today to be joined by someone who I have the utmost respect for, Dr. Indira Rampal Harad, who has possibly the coolest background of anyone I've ever interviewed. Indira, welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. It's
Oh
lovely to
my,
be here.
oh, it's great to have you. I'd love to just start by you telling us a little bit about you and your career and how you got to this moment where you have such a cool virtual background.
Well, it's been a journey. I'll start off by saying my undergrad degree was in computer science, and I realized very quickly I did not want to do that. And so started to figure out like what is this space called HR, and had a great opportunity to work as an assistant athletic director in a previous life, and did a lot of work with student athletes as it related to orientation and training and development, policies, et cetera. And that's really where I found my desire and love for HR. And so through that, I've been very fortunate to work for some small companies maybe you haven't heard of, like Wonder Bread, Delta Airlines, Aramark, American Express, and now Universal. And so throughout the journey, it has been amazing, learning and seeing how HR has transformed over the decades. And so it's always an exciting moment, and it's a great time to be at Universal right now.
Oh my gosh. And you were the first person to put your latest theme park on the radar. So can you just give a quick shout out to that? I'm so thrilled about the launch.
Yes. So May 22nd, 25, we will be introducing Epic Universe, which is out of this world. It adds another complement to the Universal Orlando Resort family. So right now we have Universal Studios Florida, Islands of Adventure, Volcano Bay, and we also have our City Walk. And now with Epic, it just makes it a full blown week adventure for our families and our guests.
I love it. And I've learned in getting to know you that you are not afraid of good roller coaster, which I very much respect of in someone. It's awesome. So, when I think about this amazing journey that you've had, I really believe that all of the work and life experiences that we accumulate really prepare us for the exact moment that we find ourselves in. And what I think about a lot is transformation and how you are leading it so valiantly, and how all of the experiences and all of the degrees and masters and PhD that you've accumulated, all of that probably really readied you for kind of this moment that you are in. So I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of, what are the ways that you've kind of experienced a shift in what it means to be HR kind of over the course of your career? You've worked in so many industries and you've seen it all.
So, that's a great question. I think the most impactful shift for me is the transformation from the people police to becoming the voice of the people. And so when you think back to like our days when we started off, it really was very transactional. It was plug and play, benefit questions, payroll questions. It was never questions about the individual. And
Mhm.
so we had to shed this transactional all caps mentality and embrace a sense of newness by reinventing ourselves,
Mhm.
specifically, creating a framework focused on well-being, mental health. COVID taught us a lot, but that was the big outlier for us. And
Mhm.
leading with heart. And I think when you're able to value differences and pepper in the strategy part of HR, and really understanding how to get and move people along with the business, that truly amplifies what transformation is for our field.
Mhm. Ain't that the truth? Because we have been in the front lines of all the things. And I'm glad that you brought up COVID. Here we are in March of 25, and it's not lost on me that we are at the 5-year anniversary. And during this time, I think that HR quickly had an unprecedented seat at the table. We were very much trying to sort of, how do you help folks, be effective and engaged working from their dining room table? How do you ensure, as you said, mental health is in good shape. And then there we were the summer of 2020 with this overdue racial reckoning in our country. And suddenly every HR leader was asked to kind of help the organization hold space for all of that. So that's just kind of pandemic. And now here we are with economic uncertainty and AI. It goes on and on. And we as HR leaders, we don't always know kind of the exact skills and tools that are needed for whatever the heck is around the corner. And so when you just think big picture, are there kind of some capabilities that you see in yourself or on your leadership team that your company are specifically really excited about and focused on bolstering, just knowing that we are in times of such unprecedented change?
Right. Well, I think first and foremost, we have to lead with kindness. And
Mm,
so every leadership session I have with my senior leaders, I start off by saying, be the I in kind. And we have
mm,
to live up to that. And I think
mhm,
Universal does an amazing job of that to start off with. But when I think of specific capabilities or competencies, you know, what jumps out is digital literacy. You
mm,
know, you mentioned AI. With the rise of AI and other technologies, we have to make sure that our team members are proficient in using them because these platforms are crucial. Going back to COVID, we we learned very quickly how valuable remote and flexible work arrangements are. And it's funny, I chuckle inside because at Amex, we were doing it in like 2007.
right, exactly.
I happened to be in healthcare when COVID happened.
Mm,
And it was so interesting to see the shift of people now saying, no, we don't have a virtual environment to, we must have a virtual environment to survive.
right.
And so, again, when you think about that digital literacy, you think about platforms like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Slack, SharePoint. Without those platforms today, even those that are in the office or hybrid, we would
Hmm.
not be able to get our jobs done.
Hmm.
The other capability that I would say is around agile leadership. So at Universal, we take pride in meeting our team members where they are. And so that
Mm,
agile leadership comes into play even so more importantly now.
mm,
We have to be able to adapt quickly to the change. We have to lead through the essential uncertainties. At Universal, we are the happy place. We are where families come to escape reality.
right,
And
right.
as such, we have to deliver an experience that is not only memorable because we do build memories, but it's also sustainable. They can take that into the following week, into the following month, into the following year until they're able to come back and see
Yeah.
us.
On that
And as
vacation high, like just kind of staying in that happy place on that vacation high in your mind. No, no pressure, no
no
pressure.
pressure, no pressure. But that makes our leaders, right? It forces our leaders to reinvent themselves. How do we create an exceptional experience, not only for our guests, but for our team members as well?
Mhm,
And so, the next capability for me is really around team member well being and
mhm,
engagement.
mhm.
How do we continue to keep team members engaged? Because as lovely as Florida is, it's hot. It is hot. And we have brutal hurricane seasons. And so, and we are an industry that is 24/7. So we are
Mhm.
open on holidays. I have a third shift that is about 4,000 strong. And when you think of HR, most HR professionals are not working 24/7. They're not working
Or
weekends and holidays and evening shifts. And so I'm fortunate that we have an organization behind us that supports programs that we can hire third shift leaders, including HR personnel, to make
Mhm.
sure that we are able to care for our team members.
And if folks have that nourishment of the soul, that well-being, then folks are traditionally they're steeled inside and they can kind of be like that reed in the wind that kind of moves instead of breaking. I sound like my quoting from my yoga teacher last night, but like it really is amazing if you kind of do that self-care, whether it's nutrition or great restful sleep or we're walking through your day with ease, then that gets you ready for whatever is around the corner. And Lord knows, none of us knows what's around the corner. So I love those pieces around agile leadership and wellness. Can we just touch on climate for a moment since you are in Florida? I live in the New York area, and we've seen a bit of the dark side of Mother Nature, so to speak. And I always think of colleagues, family down in Florida. It really is the ultimate agility that is needed for kind of whatever comes your way. And I'd imagine that very much has impact on the park, how you kind of prepare for a storm, clean up after a storm, make sure that it continues to be a consistent experience for guests. Because if they blocked off that spring break week, April 1st, it doesn't matter what the weather's like. This is the time that they've saved for and that they've kind of accrued their PTO for, and you want it to be that magical experience. How do you, as a park and as a leader, kind of create a culture where people can literally flex that quickly?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'll tell you, our last hurricane, it came in fast and furious, and we have a team on standby. We have a ride out team. We have a team that is always looking at what we need to do in terms of tying trees down, securing loose equipment, umbrellas, just things that you don't really think about.
Right.
We have a lagoon in our property. And so making sure that you draw that down because when it rains, it's going to come back up, right? So all of these things that you don't think about. And, being fairly new to the theme park life, we have departments and teams here that you're like, huh, I didn't know that a theme park would have that. So, for example, our horticulture team is amazing. We have beekeepers on property. We have, so many different specialties that you don't think about. And so when hurricane season is upon us, we do lots of planning. We have a hurricane SOP,
Hmm.
and it's not only from an operational perspective, but it's also focused on team members.
Hmm.
So in terms of pay practices, if you are ready, willing, and able to work, and we call you off, doesn't help with your bills, right? It doesn't help with the amount of money you need to
Right.
sustain this month's bills or this week's bills.
Sure.
So we have pay practices that we
Hmm.
create, and we make sure that
Hmm.
we review every single season. So if we need to flex and revise and update, we're
Right.
prepared to do that. We
Wow.
listen to feedback from our team members as well to say, we probably could have done something differently, and
Hmm.
we activate on that. And
Hmm.
so, with the help of all of our teams, we have an amazing security team as well that's plugged into all of the right external resources.
Hmm.
So we're getting information from emergency management ahead of time where we
Wow.
can go ahead and deploy certain resources. And you mentioned our guests. And so
Yeah.
that we think about our team members and our guests first. And with that said, we're always looking at what is the last possible minute that we can say, okay, we're going to shut down so that we
Hmm.
can give them that full experience and then try to reopen as soon as possible and
Right.
safely. And that may mean opening certain parts of the park and not all of it,
Right.
just so that they have the opportunity to get back on property and enjoy the
Hmm.
rest of the time with us.
Yeah, because if you're draining the lagoon, I'd imagine you need to fill the lagoon also before people can go back into that section. And I know I'm getting tactical, but what about the roller coasters and all of those things? Do you have to tether them or tie them down? What happens to those scary roller coaster rides in a storm?
So we secure all of our ride vehicles, right? We make sure that those are safe and tucked away. And then, the roller coasters are built for this, right? Like, so they're built for the movement because of the speed of the actual ride vehicles. And so all of that built in pressure points, there, it's already there. It's already there. We have amazing people that we work with to make sure that our rides are secure and safe. And, I think about the airline industry and you think about high reliability organizations. And
Mhm.
so, we fall into that bucket. And a lot of times theme parks get overlooked because we are running rides at such a frequency or cadence
Mhm.
per day that we don't have near misses. We're prepared for those situations. And, opening up a new park, we talked about Epic very briefly. We have what's called an 80-hour test. So we will run a ride for 80 consecutive hours. And if it clears that, then we know it's good to go. But if it
Oh my gosh.
stops at like hour 79.3, we start all over again. We fix what we think is the issue, and we start all over again. So safety is, so paramount to what we do.
Literally. And I would imagine that with your guests at the forefront of what you do, there are opportunities and challenges that come with that. But I would imagine an opportunity would be that if the family who worked and saved to come in from Omaha are there and they have a positive experience there, no matter what the weather is, and
Right.
perhaps your competitors down the road did not open as quickly or have their lagoon filled up back as quickly, then that is an opportunity to really amplify the fact that you got folks back on property so soon. Because folk, I would imagine your guests have a choice of where they want to spend time, and that positive experience is very much what they make sure stays in their memory. And then there must be a whole workforce planning piece around it of kind of I just recognizing and kind of rewarding the folks that made that magic happen, especially in times of of unprecedented events like weather.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We have our labor models, our workforce planning models are so flexible with the sense of, we have a team here called Business Analytics and Industrial Engineering. We call them
Mhm.
BAIE, and they are responsible for helping with our staffing models. They look at forecasting data, which includes industry trends, so highs and lows of the season, attendance predictions, hours of operation. And
Wow.
based on all of those data points, they'll help create schedules for us. And then based on the schedules, that's how we will schedule our team members. But from a team member mix, we have what we call full-time regular team members. So they work, full-time hours, 32 and above. Then we have what's called our part-time, but they're casual team members. And then we have seasonal team members. And we also have in the seasonal team members, we usually bring them in for the highs and the lows. So right now we are wrapping up our Mardi Gras season, and we're going to be going right into grad bash and grad ventures. So, high schools coming in, junior high schools coming in for their senior trips. And so we use that seasonal team member staff to augment where necessary. We also have what we call SAE, so special assignment exempt. So we have exempt opportunities for other individuals to try these jobs to see if they like them. So if we need extra leadership for a grad venture or grad bash, someone can raise their hand, go through the normal application process, and they are placed in that role for however long that season is. So it not only helps with the staffing, but it also helps from a developmental perspective. So
Yeah.
we're focused on growth and development as well.
Beautiful. And how many folks are on the team? How many employees do you have?
So HR wise or resort wise?
Actually, both. I'm curious of both. Yeah.
So resort wide, we have about 25,000 team members,
Mm.
about 22,000 are hourly team members.
Mhm.
And then within my team, within the HR team for front of house, because we have different segments of HR. So I have the pleasure of serving for the front of house, which is all of your guest facing roles. And my team is about 48 deep.
Oh. And will you grow in team size once Epic launches?
So Epic, interestingly enough, has their own team. So
Okay.
they have an HR team that's focused on supporting those team members because we're about 10 miles away.
Okay.
And so meeting team members where they are, we want to make sure that they have resources on the ground to help them when necessary.
Amazing. And again, it's amazing to me to think it's like you run a small country, Indira, just learning about all the different pieces of this.
Yeah.
So how have you kind of been a champion of culture? I know how important values-based culture is to you, and I'm just curious, what are some of the elements of culture or benefits that you offer that you think are most impactful to employees? Because I'd imagine your talent has a choice in
Yeah.
your area of where it is that they want to work. Yeah.
So, we have fun. Like that is the biggest thing here is to have fun. We look for every opportunity to surprise and delight our team members. And so, we also have an amazing team member experience group. And they go out and they find these really cool ways to engage our team members and make sure that they're a part of the experience. And so one of the things that we do quite often is we have Your Park After Dark. And it's the event where when the park is closed, our team members are allowed to come in and they can ride all the rides that they want. So you
Gosh.
don't have to worry about an express pass because there are no lines. We have party patrols where we're out there, again, surprising and delighting team members. So we really lean into the fun part, you know. That's really one of the highlights of this role is that I can walk out of my office, take 200 steps, and I'm in the park.
My God. And I just believe, that positive energy, that too can be contagious like a virus, right? So kind of,
Absolutely.
right, the more we always, you and I both know, the better we treat our frontline employees, the more that positive energy will radiate to the customer, to the client, in your case, the guest. That's amazing. And are there any benefits that you are particularly proud of that you offer in addition to this great culture that you think the benefit wise is also a magnet to attract and retain talent?
So we have amazing benefits and perks. I'll spend a little bit of time and just talk about the perks. And so, we what's interesting is we are a community within a city. That's really how, I describe Universal to friends and family members. And, I'm not naive. I know that there might be pockets of people that might have some hard days, but overall, everyone really enjoys being here.
Mhm.
We have members that have been here for over 30 years.
Wow.
We have friends and family members that are referred all the time. We have boomerangs, people that have left for whatever reason and decided to come back home.
Mhm.
And so whenever I see those team members, my first way of greeting them is welcome home because this is home. And so, with that, we have wellness. We can just focus on wellness all day, but we have a team care facility, which is kind of like an urgent care.
Mhm.
So we have, facilities available to our team members if they're not feeling well, if they have a
Mhm.
cough, if they just need some time. We also have an attached pharmacy that goes with that. So again, under the concept of community within a city, you
Yeah.
don't have to leave. Everything you need is right here. We offer complimentary tickets to all team members, and that includes the marquee events like Mardi Gras and Halloween Horror Nights, right? Which
Huh.
is huge. Universal is known for Halloween Horror
Oh,
Nights.
yes. Yes.
So, fun fact, when we talked about labor planning, we last year we hired over 2,000 seasonal characters for Halloween Horror Nights. So
And
it's a
they're like, was their job description to scare? Like to,
yes. That is exactly what they do, and they can tell when you are like running from them. So
God,
it is amazing. It is amazing. We also offer discounts on food items, merchandise. A couple times a year we have what's called either a garage sale or a warehouse sale, where
Huh.
our team members are able to purchase merchandise that's discounted anywhere between 50% up to 80% off. And people love Universal swag, I have to say.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Oh, yes.
Often, yes, we also have a joint venture with Universal Resorts Lowe's Hotels. And so when you talked about hurricane season, our guests, they may stay at our Lowe's hotels. So we
Mhm.
have opportunities for them to come over to City Walk and enjoy, even though the park may not be ready just yet. But we have red carpet discounts for our hotels for team members and also friends and family discounts as well. And going back to the fun part, our team members
Yeah.
they can volunteer to be balloon holders, during our parade seasons. They can volunteer to be on the Mardi Gras float and throw beads to our guests.
My gosh.
So there's so many perks that, you're just like, wow, this is great. Am I really working? Do they pay me to come to work?
Literally 1,000 years ago, when you and I worked at American Express, I remember if I had a sore throat or whatever, I would just zip over to the healthcare center on floor
Correct.
X, and it was so efficient. Sometimes you just need to lie in a cot for half an hour and kind of get yourself together to kind of go to the
Right.
next meeting and crush it. And just having that on site, I felt so rich, just kind of having it there. They had me at healthcare center. I can't imagine the chance to be on a float for Mardi Gras and throw beads.
Yes.
I guess that's next level. That's next level. And so this culture sounds um, like a magnet for talent again. That positive energy is so contagious. How are your kind of leaders of your various business units? How do they kind of embody it? This whole culture, how are they the stewards of culture? Because I can see at the top of the house, folks believing in that, and I can see the frontline folks benefiting. But how do you make sure that your leaders are really on the bus and stewards of that culture?
Right, right. So every decision we make is from the lens of the team member first, and that has been our anchor. And what's interesting about our leaders, we have so many leaders that were frontline team members, and through their journey here, they have enjoyed the opportunities to try new roles and grow their career. So it's not hard because they believe it, because they were a part of it, they witnessed it, they experienced it, and they are paying it forward. I also have the pleasure of supporting the SVPs of each of the front of house divisions. And so that allows me to have very candid conversations about leadership development, performance management, employee relations, and that having that direct contact, you're able to share anecdotal information. You're able to really put a face and a feeling to an example. And I think by being able to do that and humanize a process, it really allows the other person to say, we can do this better.
Mhm.
We're doing a good job, but we can be better. We can always up our game. And that's one of the greatest things about our leaders here. They all come in with that approach. They're not afraid to have challenging conversations. I chuckle every time I see a course that says, or it's labeled conducting difficult conversations. And I say to myself, it's not the conversation that's difficult. What's difficult is that person doesn't want to have it.
Uh-huh. Yes.
That's difficult.
I was speaking to a client last night and they were talking about how there was a called a C-level leader who needed feedback, and it was a CEO's job to give that feedback. And the CEO literally put off this conversation for months. And he said, you know what? He said to the head of HR I was talking to, he said, I would have literally rather have had a tooth pulled without Novocaine than have this conversation. And that is why I put it off. And I thought to myself, if a C-level leader, a CEO is putting it off, you best believe that a first-time promoted manager or someone who's new to role or someone who has that situation where they're leading folks that they used to be a peer of, that they too are putting it off. What do you think is the silver bullet? What do you think is the way to get leaders more comfortable with finally having that difficult conversation that they've gone to all the training to have?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's just spending more time with the individual, understanding their business, understanding their challenges, and then instead of being, the leader, be the coach, right? And so it's coach, put me in. You're soliciting the feedback. You're asking for that information. I tell people my role really should be called courage creator, because all it takes is one person to embody that behavior, to role model that behavior, and people look at it and they're like, wow, I get it. Our society, I think, has changed to the point where we take everything really personal.
Absolutely.
And there's a balancing act there, right? And again, if you're leading with kindness, be the I in kind. It doesn't have to be that way. And so the more that you're out there, the more that people see you, then it doesn't become, again, the people police. It's the voice of the people. And
Yeah.
so we have shuttle buses on campus that takes our team members to the different parks. And I will often get on the shuttle and just ride it around, just make the loop, just so that I can talk to team members.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't become intimidating, right? Because, I'm not, my wardrobe is a little bit different than their wardrobe, right? And so when they see me in my wardrobe, I look different and I don't want to be different. So how do I change? How do I help them see I am not different? And it's by being with them. It's being with the people, being a balloon holder, understanding what the challenges are. And we have great opportunities for our team members, our leaders to do that. Going back to augmenting workforce planning, we also have a program called Extras. And so when it is a high season, we will allow leaders to volunteer to help out in different areas. So as an HR professional, if our food and beverage team needs help, because we expect that there's going to be high volume in one of our, full service restaurants, I can do that. I can go over there. I can be a runner. I can be a busser. So it's a day in the life,
Oh,
right? And
yes.
you understand it. And our
Yes.
team members never, they don't forget that. They see you and they're like, hey, I remember you did. So
And you were like, not only were you a runner, but you remember that that one was allergic to gluten and that one wanted the salad,
correct,
the dressing on the side, like you were in it with us. So, I mean,
correct.
because I'd imagine when you hop on the bus, even if you pop on some swag, some of that coveted swag, they still maybe like, that's Indira. She's from HR, right?
Right.
You're in it with them in the role. It's amazing. And so, in this, again, I picture like you were helping to lead a small country. This is amazing. With all of this, how do you measure success? Like, are there metrics that you use to promote that positive culture and kind of catch people being good, if you will, and kind of reward them so that it does become other colleagues wanting, other team members wanting to kind of, like keep up with that positive peer pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
how do you create metrics among all this fun?
Yeah. So, we have our foundational metrics, right? So we do have an annual team member engagement survey. So we have our TSAT survey results that we look at, and we do the normal things that most organizations do. We create action plans, we have teams, we do all of those great things. We also have a case management database. And so that allows us to look and see, what kind of cases are we seeing? Are we seeing an uptick in employee relation cases? Are they around kindness? Are they around policy violations? Like, what is that? So that allows us to dig in a little bit more and informs us on what do we need to do from a training aspect. Do we need to tweak the content? Do we need to create the content? Do we need to retrain the content?
Mhm.
But in order to like really get that positive energy going, we leverage so many different platforms. We have, an internal system that we use where you can acknowledge other people. So if I acknowledge Jamie Klein, it is public. Someone can read that and give you a fist bump or a high five. So that's another level of recognition
Mhm.
and awareness, because a lot of times we don't know that these things are happening.
Right.
I'll tell you a quick story. So we have a resort-wide call, a weekly call. So each department shares what's happening so that everyone is on the same page to deliver for our guests and our team members. And on this call, someone mentioned a tech services team member who was at a ride, and a guest, a 5-year-old guest, had purchased with his own money a plushie toy, and the toy fell. It fell off of the ride. And this tech services team member got the plushie and gave it back to the guest. And of course, the family sent a note, and it was highlighted on this weekly call. And so, one of the things that gives me joy is recognizing people. So, I send out about 100 thank you cards a month, give or take. And I'm looking for those moments. And so, I sent this young man a note, and he emailed me and he said, I didn't know anyone knew about that. And I said, let me let you know that everyone knows about this. There's this call, and this is what we talk about. So you need to know that we are singing your praises. And it's those moments that we take for granted. But
But
to a team member, it
oh
is
my gosh.
the world. And being able to open a handwritten note at home, who gets regular mail anymore,
Right.
in front of your family,
Right.
it brings me joy. It brings me so much
Absolutely.
joy.
Oh my, I can already see that team member taking a picture of it, of the thank you note from the good doctor, Indira, like sending a picture of that note to their whole family group chat. These are the moments that really make people feel that
Correct.
all the hard work that they do is really differentiated from others in their circle who are everyone's out there doing hard work, but to feel that you work in an organization that has that type of culture and you kind of get caught being good, that means everything. That's beautiful. When you said thank you note, I was wondering, does she get out a pen with a
Yes.
note card? And you do. I'm a fan of that too. I think
Yes.
there's nothing like that classic note, and it is one that kind of hangs on the fridge. And when you receive it, and it always fills you with pride.
Right.
And do
And
you?
I,
Oh, please
I
go ahead.
also add just one more thing. The
Please.
other metric that we use is volunteer hours. We are big in giving back to our community. And so volunteer hours is extremely important to Universal. We have, different levels of clubs to recognize team members that are able to volunteer. We do group volunteer hours as well as individual and family. We have opportunities for team members to invite their families to come volunteer in certain, with certain organizations. So that's another metric that we use to create and maintain this positive culture as well.
Beautiful. And there's been so much research done about how giving back is kind of the ultimate endorphin um, releaser, and how it just kind of stays with you more often than that cup of coffee, a fun, video that you watch on TikTok. Like, it really, with all the innovative things that society has created here in 2025, volunteering and giving back, and not in getting out of your own head to stop thinking about the stuff that keeps you up at night, but giving to someone else. All research shows that that really sticks. And then to get paid for that, where it's part of your role, and even do it with your family, where you're extending it to loved ones, perhaps, your kids, your folks that you're a guardian for, like just for them to experience that with you, that sometimes is worth more than compensation for some families, just to feel for it helps their mental health overall, for certain. Not to take away from compensation, but it goes a long way. So I wanted just to ask a little bit more about this. So the culture that you've created, it sounds award-winning. If I was to write a case study of all the things that we want HR to kind of do and promote, this feels like the best and the brightest. And with this new park opening, I can only imagine it, it's akin to so many clients of ours that are about to acquire a company, and they're going through the whole M&A process and trying to replicate the culture of company one with company two. And how do you keep stress levels manageable, and kind of deal with potential burnout, to avoid, a need for, hiring surges that weren't planned for, without folks feeling overworked? I'd imagine it's a little bit like Jenga, to kind of keep everything strong as is, and also have this whole other entity about to launch.
Yeah, so great question. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't just say, I have the privilege of helping to support this culture. This culture has been around for decades before I joined this organization. So it's nice to be able to come into an organization and just pick up the torch and continue to run with it. But when Epic has been in the making for over 7 years, and our leaders who were a part of that vision, they have been so darn thoughtful about every single step, every single ride, every single menu selection, and even team members. And so we've had team members who knew that's where I wanted to be. The minute that job gets posted, I'm going to apply for it. And so again, with our friends in BAIE, we were able to create a staffing plan that allowed us to create a pacing plan. So our amazing talent acquisition team they are rock stars. They have hired over 5,000 positions already for the park. And it's genius, right? You said it best, Jenga. And so their pacing plan has to be on point with when people are needed to start, how we schedule our I-9s, our fingerprinting, our day one orientation, making sure we have enough seats for people based on their start date, and then finding space. So although it's a theme park, it is hard to find conference space here. And so we have to be creative. Sometimes we're using sound stages, right? Sometimes we're going big because we have to get the volume through. And so, when you think about stress levels, I think there's so much energy in the air that people don't have time to be stressed. Like, none of this is stressful. This is all fun. This is all like, wow, I can't wait. And just when you think you're at your peak, the company does something like rolls out family preview nights or family preview week, where you're able to share what you've been working on with your family members. And so, so we balance, you work hard, but you play harder.
Oh, yes. And then your family, your brethren can kind of come in, and again, without those lines, kind of experience it all. It's
Right.
great. It's great. I'm so impressed with you as a human and as a professional. And I understand that you are standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, and carrying that torch. But it sounds like the torch is just getting a little bit brighter with you there. With all of this, I'm so curious, what do you as a human do to fuel? What brings you joy? What do you do for self-care? Yeah.
So, joy, it's my family, it's my friends, it's moments like this where you and I can connect, like that keeps me going. Um, when I think about why, the purpose is so important to me. And when I think about my children, I think about wanting them to be good citizens, be
Mm,
good humans. And the only way that happens is by doing it, is by exposing them to things, allowing them to make the hard decisions, allowing them to understand what hot and cold feels like, right? And so being able to have them experience and not only listen, because yeah, I think about things that my parents said, and I'm like, oh, I'll never say that, and then I find myself saying the same
there
thing.
we are. I know. I know.
And so I want them to see it on their own, right? And so, just helping people, writing thank you cards, they do that. I don't have to say, well, you should send this person a thank you card because they did something nice. They're writing thank you cards to their
Mm,
teachers for helping. And that's what fuels me because I know that it is making a difference. I know that someone is listening, looking on their own and choosing. They are making a conscious decision to do something. And
mm.
so that really fuels me. Just seeing the happiness, the brightness in their eyes, because they're our future.
Oh, yes, they are. And when I think about, well, first of all, as a parent, we never get a performance appraisal, but I'm giving you the day off. If you if you raised a child that's writing their own thank you note on their own, I mean, I'm giving you high marks, my friend. That is next level. That's great. Oh my gosh. And they are our future, and there is a lot unfolding. And someday we will all be in assisted care facilities wearing pants that are a little bit too short because they've gone through the dryer a lot, and they'll be there taking care of us. And so we're taking care of them during this time.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my God, it's so good to spend time with you. And I'll be thinking of you with opening. I hope to come down and ride a ride or two at some point soon to check it out. So thank you so much for spending this time together.
It's going to be epic.
Oh, I love it. Take good care, stay healthy, and we will talk soon.
You as well. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.